Always great to be back at the CP. We came here 12 years ago for the first time, walked in, didn't know anybody, felt just like home. Now we left 4 years ago because I'm being a good husband. We moved to Abilene, where my wife is from, but when we come back, we always think of this as a church home. Our two older kids grew up here. You'll see them today with me, our younger child as well. So we love being back. Kyle and the team, such energy, such passion. I got to sit among our deaf friends and have worship literally signed over me beautifully from every angle. Just a tender moment being back with you all. So Kale, thank you for the invitation to come back and preach once again. Always a special place to be. It turns out the Mad Hatter has some good advice for Alice. When she tumbled down the rabbit hole, didn't know where she was or how she got there, he asked her to tell the story of how she arrived. And she didn't know what to do. He said, well, start at the beginning. When you get to the end, stop. That's good advice for even preachers and people talking in publicly. But I think that formula is a little bit boring, expected, familiar. So sometimes you got to flip the script and start at the end and begin at the finish. Now, a great film called Inception does this very well. The opening sequence you see is actually much later in the movie, and you're taken from that place to that journey to see how you got there. Same director did Memento, kind of the same idea. If you're more of a reader, the novel Infinite Jest does this same thing. The opening scene in that book is the last thing that happens. And so the journey is, how did we get from there to here? What happened in between? And so I'm going to start this sermon at the end and tell you the main point now. But don't leave after I say this, because we're not quite finished. But the main point and the end is transformed lives transform lives. Before God sends a message, he changes the messenger. So that's the main thesis, the final stop. We're going to circle back and see what that means, because I considered several texts this morning for this sermon. You got Moses in the burning bush. You got Jacob in the midnight wrestling match with God. You've got Isaiah in the temple being changed by angels and smoke and fire. You've got Mary with the visit of the angel and all that. You have Saul going to Damascus and Jesus appeared. And those are all amazing stories, but they're all familiar. And so I felt compelled to highlight two people in the Bible who are so unimportant they aren't even named. They are two unnamed outsiders, non-Jews, who I see Jesus using to change lives. So our first text is Mark 5, 1 through 20, if you want to find that. And to keep with my theme, I'm going to start in the last verse, verse 20, and we'll see how we got there. Mark 5:20 says, the man went off and began to announce in the Decapolis what Jesus had done for him. And everyone there was astonished. So what man? Who is this man we're talking about? Well, let's back up a bit and talk about what's happened in Mark to this point. So far in Mark, Christ has been operating in the Jewish areas only. He's been in synagogues, in the temple. He's been teaching and preaching in Jewish towns and villages. He hasn't yet ventured out beyond kind of his home base area. But in chapter 4, verse 35, he says a phrase to his disciples that might have been a little bit stress-inducing. He says to them, let's go to the other side. Let's go across the sea to the Gentiles. Let's go to the other side of the sea. They hadn't yet done this. And as the Lord planned this out, it's when they're crossing the sea to go see the Gentiles for the first time that the storm rages. The winds and the waves rock the boat, and the lightning and the rain, it's all tossing and turning. And Jesus says to the storm, shh, peace, be still. And the storm and the wind stops. I think preparing them for what's ahead, letting them be reminded of who they're following. He is the one who can control nature's forces just with a thought and a word. So they get across this 5-mile stretch across Galilee, and they get off the boat. They would have seen some caves like these limestone caves you'll see behind me that were around this region where people would hide out, people would bury bodies there, use them as makeshift tombs. And so as they get off the boat, it's a very strange place, unfamiliar, a new ground for them. And the first thing that happens is this man leaves one of these caves and runs to Jesus and bows before him and calls him the Son of the Most High God. Now, we're told this man was possessed by a demon. He would cry out in the daytime and cut himself with stones, and he would break chains. People tried to bind him. He would just throw them off and cast off the shackles. He was out of control, a menace, an outcast, living in tombs, a place of uncleanness, a place where Jews would not go. And back to the Jewish area, people weren't sure who Jesus was yet. They're trying to figure out, who is this man, this teacher, this son of the carpenter? He lands in Gentile territory, and this man with a demon says, I know who you are. I worship you and come down to you. And the first thing he says, the man says to Jesus, is really hard to translate. It literally is, what to you and to me, which isn't great English, but it's basically like, what do you have to do with me, Jesus? Why you and me? What business do you have with me, Lord? Why are we here together? And in kind of ironic twist, this is the very same question Jesus asked his mother Mary in John 2 when she says, hey, Jesus, the wine's getting low with this wedding. You want to make some more? He says, Mom, what to you and to me? Mom, what's the deal? The same question, exact same phrasing comes out of this demon-possessed man's mouth when he sees the Lord. And he calls him the Son of the Most High God and names him Jesus. This Gentile man sees what others have missed. Now, we go on the story, and the demons beg to be sent into this herd of pigs nearby. Bad day for these pigs, by the way, spoiler alert. And Jesus says, go into the pigs, and these pigs rush down the hillside into a lake and drown. We're told about 2,000 pigs. And the people who live there, that's how they make their living. That's how they pay the bills and feed the kids. And they're not too happy with this Jesus guy that just showed up. And they beg him, verse 17, they beg him to leave their region. But when they go to beg him to leave, they see the demon-possessed man sitting there in his right mind, fully clothed, just being a normal person. And they are astonished by what has happened. And as Jesus leaves, this man begs of him the same word they used to ask Jesus to leave. He begs him, Jesus, let me come with you. Let me be with you. You have touched my life and changed my life and healed me and cast out the demons. I am now whole and normal and whole again. I want to be with you. We know Christ calls the 12 in chapter 3 to come and what? Be with him. But Jesus says, no. You go back home and tell the people there what the Lord has done for you and how he has shown you mercy. He could have taken this man to be one of the disciples and changed him and taught him and brought him around to see more miracles and hear more teachings. He said, no, go back to your people and tell this story. What happened next? Did it work? Do we know? Well, we do know. In Mark 7, Christ goes back to the Decapolis, the same region. And when he arrives, Gentiles approach him, verse 31, 37, and ask him to heal, ask him for miracles, ask him for signs. And they have heard about him. How did they hear about Jesus? I believe partly from this healed man. He went back. He told the story. This man's life was transformed, and his life transformed others because he obeyed. Before God sends a message, he changes the messenger. Now our second text, John 4, 1 through 28. And again, we'll begin at the end with the last verse, verse 28. Then the woman left her water jar, went back to the town, and spoke to the people. So again, what woman? What's going on here? What's happening? Well, just like in Mark, at this point, Christ has been working in Jewish territory. He's been working in Galilee and Judea. He's going between the two, and there's this place between these two called Samaria. We know about Samaritans. You've heard about the parable of the Good Samaritan. You know what this is about. But these are not just outsiders. These are ancient enemies. Because after the exile, after Assyria conquered Israel and Samaria, they took people from Israel back to Samaria, and devout Jews told their children, don't marry any of these people. You can't date them, can't go out with her, can't have any connection. We're going to stay pure and keep our Jewish bloodline pure with God's people. This didn't happen exactly, and some of these kids did marry Samaritans. And I kid you not, some Jewish parents, when their child married a Samaritan, had a funeral for their own child. You are dead to me because you married him or her. No longer part of my life, no longer considered part of my family. They had a literal funeral for this child. Deep-seated hatred, deep-seated racism and animosity between these people. And Jesus says, let's go straight through. Let's go straight through this land. Well, he comes to this well. They're traveling, and we're told this is Jacob's well. It's in a place called Sychar, which is now Nablus in the West Bank. There's a picture of this well. Today, you can go visit it. It has this Orthodox church built around it, so it looks a little bit fancy-ish. But back in the day, it looked more like this. An obsolete, out-of-the-way place where Christ was traveling. And we see in this text a very human Christ. He's tired. He's thirsty. He wants to stop and rest. And he sends the 12 to go get food in the nearby town, so he's kind of there alone. And this woman, Samaritan woman, comes to the well to draw water. And Jesus breaks all protocol by asking her for a drink of water. And she is taken aback. What would a Jew, talk to me, a Samaritan woman here at the well? We're here alone? Like, this doesn't feel right or appropriate. But Jesus begins this conversation that goes many places, talk about living water and the gift of God and true worship and the mountain, and that's all really great stuff that I don't have time to talk about now. I want to focus on the later part, but that's good stuff to talk about another time. He makes this kind of about face when he says to her, they're talking about all these other things, and he says, go and call your husband. Go and call your husband. Now, why would he ask this question? They're talking about the mountain and living water. He wants to teach her something. And she says, oh, sir, I don't actually have a husband. He says, you don't. You're right. You've had not one, not two, not three, not four. You've had 5 husbands, and your current man is not your husband either. Now, let's not make too many assumptions. We assume things that we're not told about this woman. She may have been immoral, yes. Some husbands may have died. Some husbands may have divorced her for a petty reason. Back in this time, men could send a woman off for really like burning the toast, like doing something just that bothered him. He could send her off and divorce her. And so Christ's words may not be indicting her for being a bad woman. They could be compassionate and merciful, saying, I know what you've been through. Mark doesn't tell us what happened in this world. We don't know. And actually later in Mark, people come to Christ and say, hey, what if some woman had 7 brothers and married 7 men and they all died? In the afterlife, whose wife will she be? And we're not told that she did anything wrong. So why would we assume here that this lady did as well? We don't really know. The point is not what her story is. The point is that Jesus knows her story. He knows what she has been through, whatever that might have been. He knows, having just met her moments ago, and she is taken aback. Wow, sir, you are a prophet, truly. And she says, a woman of Samaria says, I know the Messiah, that's her very word, the Messiah is coming. And he will show us and tell us all things. And this is the setup. Jesus says, I am he. I'm the one before you who is him. So when he asked, go and call your husband, he had the end in mind to show her who he truly was. Now, why did he do that? Why did he make this woman feel these feelings of her past and the pain that may have been there? Because he tells her that she's going to go, leave her water jar, go back to town, and tell the people what she had done, what she had seen. She says, come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Come and see this person who knew my story, who knew my heart. What happened next? Did it work? Yes, we know what worked, because in the very next part, we're told that several people in that town believed because of what the woman testified about Jesus. She went left her water jar. Don't miss that part. She left in haste. It was urgent and immediate. What have we left behind or need to drop on the way? Her life was transformed, and her life transformed others. She wasn't sent far away. She was sent back home to tell about what Christ had done. Because before God sends a message, he changes the messenger. So, what about you? How is your life being transformed? And how are you sharing that with other people? Have you experienced victory over an addiction? Then come and talk to people at Celebrate Recovery who may be struggling, speaking of their lives. Have you been healed of a mental or physical illness? Come and visit the sick. Attend a support group and share your testimony of healing and faith. Have you found deeper meaning in the rat race of life, in school and work, and chasing a career, and found purpose in that? People around you need to hear that message and want to know that too. Have your eyes truly seen your neighbors? Do you truly see the people around you? Invite them into your home for a meal or a time of fellowship or a game night or movie night. Has your heart been touched with the plight of refugees and immigrants around you? Welcome and befriend them. Take the gospel with you as you go. Sometimes missions is not going around the world. It's going down the street or across the hall, somewhere nearby. Because transformed lives transform lives. Which sounds like the end, right? Look, we're back to the beginning at the end and the beginning and all that. And we're almost there. We're not there quite yet. There's one final turn I want us to take together. Because it's easy to think of the people we're serving as the ones being changed. And the ones we go and minister to as the ones who are being transformed. But I want to submit that they play a vital role in our transformation too. When you share the gospel, that's always a two-way street. You both give, but you also receive from these people the gift of their change. So there's a cycle that God wants us to be part of, the cycle of constant transformation. As we go and serve, we too are touched and changed because transformed lives transform lives. And before God sends a message, God changes the messenger. Moses had a burning bush. Jacob had a midnight wrestling match. Isaiah had an encounter in the temple with smoke and fire. Mary had an angel visit her one night. And Saul went to Damascus one day and met Jesus on the road. And these two unnamed Gentiles had direct encounters with Christ. And they were changed forever. He didn't send them far away. He didn't tell them to go around the world. He sent them back home to their own backyards to tell what he had done in their lives. So what will your story be? Whose lives will you touch? And how will you be changed along the way?
Amen.